Hey y'all, today I'm going to be showing you how to pack the bearings in your trailer. Even though this is a horse trailer, pretty much all travel trailers are about the same. I obviously already jacked the trailer up. You basically just use a bottle jack for that and put it in the center of the axle, and you can jack it up that way. Just make sure your wheels are chocked really well and make sure to use a jack stand as well. So go ahead and start by taking your tire off. You can take your grease shield off. I have a really skinny screwdriver there, and you kind of just pry it out. Give it a few taps with the hammer, and then I get a bigger screwdriver and kind of twist it, and then the grease cap just comes right off. Now this is where your camper might differ. This one has a little tab you just push down, but a lot of campers have cotter pins, so you're gonna have to take that cotter pin out. After that, you can take the main nut off right there, and then your brake drum will kind of slide out, and you can take your bearing and your washers out. After that, go ahead and slide your brake drum off. I kind of threw it down on that piece of wood there on purpose because it kind of shakes all of the extra dust off. So go ahead and do that, and then clean off your spindle really good. I went ahead and blew out my brake shoes and all that fun stuff inside the brakes, and I'll go ahead and blow out the drum as well. Also angle the drum away from you so you don't get dust in your face. Next, you're gonna start packing the inside bearing. I'd take the old grease out first, just to kind of give me a clean slate. Doesn't have to be super clean. And then I got 2 fingers full of new grease. I like to use the Valvoline multi-vehicle high temperature red grease, but you can pretty much use anything that's similar to that. So I take the grease and I put it in the bearing, and I kind of press it up. And you kind of just work your way around the inside. Now you can take the seal out and repack the bearing that way, but the seal's fine and there's really no need to take the seal out in my opinion. And I've gotten pretty good at packing the bearing from the inside. So just kind of work at it until you think that's good, and you've got lots of grease in that bearing. Go ahead and clean it off again. You're going to clean this thing off probably 10 times before you put it back on. Just because you don't want any grease in the brake drum at all. So spray it with brake cleaner, wipe it off really good. Make sure to wipe the inside ring there, your seal. Wipe that off really good so there's no residual grease. Go ahead and clean off your brake shoes and all that other fun stuff on the inside there, and just kind of give it a good wipe down just to get all the extra brake dust off. Now I'm going to clean the drum one final time before I stick it back on, just to make sure that there's no residual grease there. And notice after I clean it and when I pick it up, note the position of my hands. I don't stick my fingers on the inside of the drum after I cleaned it. So that's very important. After this, you're going to go ahead and clean your bearing. Just kind of wipe off all the extra grease right there. And what I am doing right here is inspecting it to make sure that there's no gouges or scratches and that the bearing looks like it's okay and not falling apart, because sometimes they do need to be replaced and they get worn out. Next, you're going to pack your bearing. And to do that, you basically just get a handful of grease and you work the bearing on your palm, pressing down and pulling it down at the same time. So you notice the grease starts coming up out of the top of the bearing. That's how you know your new grease is coming in and your old grease is going out. And you basically just work your way all around until you feel like it's packed pretty good. After your bearing is packed, you can go ahead and stick it back in. Make sure the cone side goes inside. It really only goes one way, but the cone needs to go in toward the brake drum. After that, you can put your washer back on, and then you can put your nut back on. Now hand tighten it all the way down, and then you're going to get a pair of channel locks, and you're going to tighten it a quarter turn, spin the drum, and then tighten it back the other way to loosen it again. And then you can put your cotter pin back in or flip your tab back up and put your grease shield back on. Now the reason I tightened it, turns the drum, and then loosened it again is because that seats the bearing. So that's a very important step that you don't want to miss. You also don't want to tighten it too tight. So definitely don't do any more than hand tight. After that, you pretty much do everything you did the first time, but you do it in reverse. And I just killed a black widow right there. So that's what my face was for. And right here, I actually messed up because I meant to put my anti-seize on first, but I accidentally put my lug nuts on before I did that. So I took them back off, so don't make that mistake. But I use anti-seize on the threads just a little bit, kind of just helps the threads not lock up so much. So that's kind of a personal mechanic's choice, and that's up to you if you want to do that or not. Tighten them down a little bit, and then I got my torque wrench, and I will lower my jack just a little bit. After that, just get your torque wrench and torque them all down to the right specs. If you've never torqued a tire before, just look it up because there's a pattern that you're supposed to torque the lug nuts. Then you can lower your jacks, and that's it.